You have to believe that you can actually do something to make that change that you're looking for. And from that belief will actually come the change. And then you'll see the results and you'll build the motivation, and that's what will keep you propelled forward.
All right. So hi, everybody. I thought this would be a really cool conversation to bring on my friend Zach. He is a composer, content creator, educator. You might have seen like a ton of his stuff on YouTube already. And he is pretty much a active working composer in the industry. So Zach, welcome. Take it away if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's good to be on the channel, Robert. And Robert has been doing my video editing and all things behind the scenes for the last few years. So it's awesome to be on your channel for a change. Yeah.
I know, like, recently even yesterday, you were saying how, like, you had some new projects that you wanted to get started on. You worked on the Kung Fu Panda show on Netflix. You also just announced Dragonair, Silence God. So just in general, like, how has your experience been working with all of these different, TV shows, games, things like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I wanted to do since I was a kid. So, I mean, every day I am really, really grateful to be able to make music for a living. Doesn't mean I always love every single facet of it every day, but I'm really grateful on the whole, and I absolutely love what I do, and I'm still very passionate about it. Those gigs were both fantastic. Kung Fu Panda, Dragon Knight ended in April of 2023, and I've missed it ever since because I was getting to write music for Poe every week, so that was amazing. And Dragonair has been kind of this ongoing thing because they're a season-based game. So every season they have new campaigns, which means new storylines, which means new characters and music. So I get commissioned in to do some of the music along with the team. The main person I'm working for, his name is Wei Jun Chen. He's an amazing guy, and he's gotten me a lot of work on the game. And that team is just amazing. I mean, they barely ask for revisions. They're just like super on board for anything we create. We've gotten to do some live orchestral sessions for them. It's been really a dream gig, honestly. And I never expected to find my way into game music because I was always into animation, but having done some work for them and other games like them, I'm really getting into it. So I hope I get to do more like it.
Oh, that's so cool. Just out of curiosity, how did you get started with that?
So Wei Jun, I met through a mutual friend who I met at a virtual convention. When quarantine was going on, I had no work opportunities and I didn't have anybody in my network, like a lot of people. So one thing that I started leaning into was connecting with people virtually. And I saw that there was a Game SoundCon, which recently just ended for this year, but it's an annual game convention. And I just thought on a whim, you know what, I'll give this a try. They had discounted because it was all virtual. So it was like, I don't know, $50 or something like that. I'm like, there's no harm in doing it. And one of the cool things that the convention had was you could see the member directory. So you could see all the attendees, all the people that were going to be there. And you could also see like where they were from and what they were interested in. So I just looked up Pasadena, where I live. I saw there was a guy named Tyler who lived here too. We connected. We became friends over the course of like a year or two. And then he wound up referring me to Wei Jun, who has since given me a lot of work opportunities in a space that I was otherwise not connected at all in, being video games and mostly like mobile games for Chinese developers. But it's been great. So it's all just stemmed from one connection.
That's insane. Like the idea that you can just do something completely online and like get actual work opportunities from it, or just like even just a connection without not even thinking about the work. I think about how we met, and like to this day we have yet to meet in person, but I've known you now at this point, like almost 2 years?
Well, we met because you were part of if I remember right, I had done an animation seminar, right? Talking about composing music for animation. And I think there were maybe like 6 people there. And you were one of the 6. And I think we did introductions. And you had your bass set up like you do now. And I remember being like, oh, this guy's actually got like a music setup behind him. Your camera looked good. You introduced, funny enough, you're actually the only one that introduced yourself as a composer. I think I remember a lot of them talking. Yeah, like you actually introduced what you did. A lot of people talked about, even though they were composers, a lot of them didn't actually introduce themselves that way. And yeah, you just stuck out to me, man. So it was just kind of a gut instinct. Like, I think this guy gets it. So
well, I'm super appreciative that that I somehow was able to stick out. But yeah, it all worked out because then I think at that point you reached out just saying like, hey, I have some videos. I know you have a channel. Would you be interested? And I think at that point too, I was already watching a lot of your videos and stuff, and I kind of got a feel for how you ran your channel. So like I hoped that I understood the flow of how you wanted things, and
yeah.
I really connected to that style of video. So
Well, it's very niche. It's a niche space, doing composing and content creation is a really less so. It's becoming less of a niche space, which I think is a great thing.
right.
But in the beginning, especially I think when we started, there were very few composers that were really actively making content of that type. And so finding a video editor isn't really enough. You actually need someone who kind of understands the content that you're talking about, at least a little bit, because if you don't understand that, you can't really know how much time people need to process information. And it's really a very specialty driven thing. It's often actually, I think, a big reason why people do or don't get noticed too in this space is like if you're skill stacking, if you have multiple skills combined that are seemingly disparate, like for me doing YouTube and composing, it's just different enough, those two things together, that it can sort of separate you against other people. And it's sort of, I think I sensed that when we talked. I was like, okay, he's got a good camera setup and you have a good layout. Like, you must be some form of a content creator. And you uploading your own content and me noticing that was a big draw why I reached out to you, because there were so few people I knew that were doing that.
It's funny because as like composers, I don't think we want to view our music as content, or
Yeah.
like we and I see that all the time. Like you're not creating content, you're creating
Making art.
That,
Yeah.
that is such
Well,
a
both.
beautiful sentiment, but like in a way there has to be a balance that like it's okay to create the content because you're showcasing your art in a way.
Well, I think that making art and selling art are two different things. And people that, if someone doesn't like the idea of selling art and they want to just make art, that is completely valid. And there are many, many, many people who would much prefer to just make art for themselves without constraints, without having to worry about marketing it. So it's completely valid. There's nothing wrong with that, and we need people like that. But there's also a lot of people who really want to monetize their art. And in order to do that, the only way you can do that is, in my opinion, you have to actually get really good at understanding how to present it in ways that people are attracted to it. I mean, I was the same way. When I started, I was just uploading, I was making albums, I was uploading my portfolio, my YouTube videos, I think I still have them uploaded. Like, you can look. My YouTube videos were me just sharing screenplays of my music performances. And of course, like what happens to everybody, they don't get many views. And it was really, really annoying because I remember being like, I don't understand. Like, shouldn't my music stand on its own two legs? Shouldn't it be enough to be able to get the opportunities? But by circumstance, not really by design, I started to talk more about the process, get in front of the camera more and share the process more of making the music. And suddenly that was what garnered interest on the channel. And it made me realize, oh, people actually like learning about the music, not just hearing the music. And learning about it builds the appreciation. And then ultimately, those people that were learning and appreciating were then becoming people that were buying the music as clients or as just listeners.
Right. And it's funny because I'm sure that you like as someone with a YouTube channel, like the switch from I'm just sharing the music and posting about it to then talking about it more and like explaining to, you know, aspiring composers or just people with an interest. There's almost like a skill developed in like your communication skill becomes a little bit better because you understand what you're trying to convey to, you know, the audience, to potential clients. With my channel, at least, like my communication has gotten significantly better when talking with other musicians, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
that is just like a skill I wasn't really expecting from YouTube. So it's very, very interesting.
It's funny. Ever since I was a kid, I kind of had to find this balance because my parents appreciate music. My dad actually was not full time, but he played guitar and stuff. So he had a really deep music appreciation. He introduced me to tons of music when I was a kid. He had
Nice.
literally a dresser filled with CDs, like a huge dresser, and would just be like, "Hey Zach, come downstairs." He had this big stereo system, and he would play me all this music, and so he got me interested in a lot of music. My mom doesn't really have any musical background at all, but she was a teacher for elementary school kids. So I kind of through them, I sort of found an in-between as a communicator of music, because often I would be learning about this theoretical stuff and, you want to talk to people about it. And especially when you're not in like a college or something, composing can feel really isolating and you just like want to talk to people about it, but people don't understand it. So very often I found myself trying to figure out ways to speak about music in an accessible way that people could understand. And we would also have assignments. I mean, when I was in school, in college, we wouldn't just play the piece. We'd have to introduce the piece. And so we'd have to start to prepare coming up with a backstory to talk about things and create that interest in the beginning that needs to be there for people to be invested in your piece. So I started to develop that skill at a younger age of how do I actually talk about what I do in a way that people can understand. And I would meet people, musicians and friends of mine that could not do that. And people who are really entrenched in the craft of making music. And then when you go to talk about anything but music to them, they kind of go like, huh? Because it's just so...
Freezes up.
Yeah, exactly. It's just ingrained, It's like a light switch you have to kind of turn on and off. So, but it's a really important skill because, again, like I said, if you're doing it full time or even just collaborating with people, directors don't necessarily understand the language of music. Animators or game developers don't understand the language of music. And so that is a skill that you need to have to be able to communicate. And often a lot of it is just finding that common ground of storytelling, which is what music has in common with lots of other art forms. People understand story, but people may not understand a Picardy third. So you have to figure out how to speak story when it comes to music as opposed to speaking theory.
That is 100% just like the experience that I've noticed. And it's funny because like a lot of musicians, at least that I see online, will, maybe share something. But again, like you said, it's hard for them to communicate. It's hard for them to promote and market themselves. It's hard. So there's a lot more to the music than I think we realize or want to venture into.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think you actually shared this the other day. It was on your stories on Instagram, but it was about how like us as composers, creatives, we love the act of composing and perfecting our craft. But if you think about it, finding actual paid work is a completely different animal altogether.
Well, music is our safe space, I think. That's a big part of it, is that people get comfortable. Like I said, if someone likes to just strictly make music, then sure, maybe it's not necessarily the safe space, maybe it's just their space. But when people transition to, okay, I love making music, I would love to do this for a living, and I'd love to get paid to do this, that lack of skill sets in those other departments becomes really quickly apparent. Even if they don't understand what they're missing, they understand that something's not working. And what often happens is creative people, being creative people, go, I'm not getting work. I guess my music isn't good enough. And so they go back to the space that they're familiar with and really focus a lot of their time and energy, get their music better. And they think that if the music is good enough, then that's going to get them the work. And the shift that has to be made is you're actually already responsible for working on your craft. That's not what's going to make you stand out. That's the baseline, the norm. I'm still working on my craft and I'm doing it full time. And I'm still thinking about ways to update my template and thinking about my weak spots. I mean, I literally keep lists of saying, okay, you know what? I never use enough silence in my music. I always over orchestrate. I need to thin it down. I'm constantly doing that, but that is a fraction of what I'm doing day to day, week to week. So it's not over investing all of your energy in just simply making your music better. It's working the parts of the body of your career that are underdeveloped. Because like I said, I've talked about this analogy before, but the craft is it's like biceps. It's like everybody loves to work their biceps because it's the part of their body that tends to get, show really measurable results, and you can see that improvement and it feels good. And like everything else is like leg day where like people hate it, but they hate it because they're weak at it. And so doing it reminds them how weak they are at it. And that's painful. And so to avoid the pain, people go back to the thing that they're comfortable with. So it's about getting comfortable with the discomfort of being really not good at reaching out to people, sending emails, building your network, marketing. Those things are not natural skill sets for a lot of people, but you have to work on them in order to make them a skill set.
Yeah, for sure. And like, also, that's such a hard truth. Like, no, like that's the thing. No one wants to hear it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a mix of like, one, it's boring. Like, who wants to think about like, this email that I have to send, how can I craft this in a way when I could be making music? And
of course,
something that
right.
makes me smile. And like, I'm also, I guess, like a little weird because I do like administrative stuff like that.
I do too.
But like other normal musicians might not
right.
like that. But like, it's almost one, we have to just keep up with it, practice it. And if we shift the mindset a little bit, it doesn't have to be like hard selling and like, kind of sleazy businessman type. Like that
right.
When people say music is not about, X, Y, and Z and like just selling out. And you're right. It doesn't have to be like that. It can genuinely be, what do you post online? Like, how are you connecting with others? And when you make a connection, did they enjoy your experience enough to recommend you to somebody else? Like,
yeah,
I think that's what we forget about.
The great irony is that many of the really successful composers that are doing it full time are the ones that spend the majority of the time doing things that aren't music. Yeah. And as a result, and it's been interesting because I've noticed this as I've moved further up the ladder, is you see people that farm out a lot of their work. They build a big team around them. And I used to look at that and say, oh, that's so impure. I would never do something like that. How could you work to get this job and then you get the job and all you want to do is anything but the music? I don't understand. I used to look at it like that. And actually going to music college, a lot of my faculty members looked at it like that. They looked at it like selling out, impure, diluted. And the reality is that is what is required to be able to get that kind of a work in the first place. And so you kind of have these two different types of people that are making a living making music. You have people that are headlining a lot of the work, and those are people that are spending a good amount of time doing networking and marketing and pitching and all those things. And then you have people that are making a living making music, not necessarily headlining this stuff, but being part of a team that is getting it through the finish line. And those are people that are specialists and more comfortable with parts of their craft making music, but aren't as comfortable or as well connected or want to spend the time doing the non-music stuff. And it's been something I've experienced because I've built my network mostly around composers based on the kind of content that I make on my channel. So the kind of work that I get tends to be additional music, where I'm writing for composers who are writing for projects. And in my case, these are smaller projects. So the composers that I'm working with are very active in the projects. I'm not talking about just handing me work and saying goodbye. But see, that is a whole next level ladder breakthrough of, okay, well, now I'm making a living making music. How do I make a living making music that has my name on it? That is like a whole separate struggle. So, but I think at the end of the day, having skills in both is essential if you want to be able to have an entrepreneurial mindset and be able to move up the ladder and not get stuck. Because there's also this situation that we refer to as golden handcuffs, where you might get caught doing something that's kind of in the music space, but not exactly what you want, but pays really well. And that sounds great until it's not. Because if you get paid really well to do copyist work and you're doing transcriptions all day and you really want to be composing, you can get really easily stuck because people typecast you as this is the copyist guy and you make good money for it, but you don't really want to do it. So there's so many challenges to navigate at every step of the way. And that's a whole separate point, which is that the journey really never ends. It just keeps progressing. And so I think to your point of feeling sleazy networking or anything like that, the key always is to find ways to enjoy the process of the thing, because the process is the thing. It's not leading to the thing. It is the thing. That is what you're going to be doing. If you can build a structure around networking that you actually enjoy, that you actually really like it, or at least tolerate it, that's awesome. And that's something you want to preserve and protect as you move through your journey. Because if you build a business or you build a career doing things you don't like, you're going to have a career doing things you don't like by the time you get there. Yeah.
That is such a, I actually love that statement. Just like that, the process is the thing. Like, I forget the word, but kind of like we put up on a pedestal, like this idea of composing, and like we put it up with all of, these AAA composers like Hans Zimmer, John Williams, and that is the end goal. And like that is just such, like, it's great to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. But if you're only gonna think that you're gonna be happy with that end result, and then what you're doing now is just not, you're just getting through it to get there.
Yeah, but right.
That's going to be so hard. So yeah, the process is the thing,
Yep. And you can scale your goals. I mean, your goals can start in reasonable things that can be reasonably attained. Sometimes I think people shoot too high too quickly. It's good to dream. It's good. Dreaming is great. I mean, I dreamt of writing music for Pixar, and that was a big driving force that kept me going in the beginning of my career. But my goal was not to compose for Pixar. My goal was something more attainable. Like, hey, I want to meet some new animators, or I want to, if I'm making music as a copyist, I want to start saying no to copyist work so I can say yes to composing work. The goals are things that can actually be attainable and measurable. So you need both. You can dream, but if the dreams can become addictions. So you have to make sure that you don't put so much of your hope in that dream that you can't recognize the progress that you've made.
Yeah, because it's super easy to be self-critical when, if you're working at this for years and you're not anywhere close to even meeting Hans Zimmer yet, it can be such a dog chasing after a truck or something. Like, almost impossible to do.
It also never looks like what you expect it to look like, by the way. Like that, we look at those composers and we go, oh, like they're doing their dream job. There's a good chance that Hans Zimmer never wanted or expected to be where he is right now. And I'm confident about other composers that I know. I mean, John Powell, I know, loves writing opera. I mean, he said it himself in interviews that he wanted to do classical music and he just chose film because it paid the bills. So you have to imagine that Powell really wishes that he was doing maybe something slightly different than what he is. But we don't see that because we admire their work so much that we kind of, yeah, we idolize those positions. And so when we go through our careers, we often resist things even when they're working sometimes because we think this isn't aligned with what I want to do. And I mean, that was true for me for YouTube. It was true with video game music. I didn't think that was my sweet spot. You know, it's true with a lot of parts of my career, but becoming adaptable and learning to embrace things that are working for you is a big part of it. And yeah, just not getting so caught up in like this perfect vision of what your career is supposed to look like.
Yeah. And like, even if you do feel like you're getting stuck or something, or like you feel like you're not aligned with your work, I feel like shifting the mindset to who can I connect with? Who do I see myself working with? Who is the type of person that I'm going to enjoy the job because I enjoy working with this person? You know, they make it
Yes.
easier. They have connections, and it's not about, oh, I want to connect because of the connections, but it's about the environment that's created when, you know, working one-on-one or working with a team. And I feel like if you can understand who you want to be around, and
Mm-hmm.
that leads to the projects that you want or you
It's a
don't
great point.
realize you want to work for.
Yeah, it's a great point because we tend to look at the projects first because these things have accolades, but most people have no idea what goes behind some of those projects. I mean, if you heard, we also romanticize the idea of toil, of pain. You know, we romanticize like, oh, you know, this composer says that this film took him 4 months and he lost all his sleep and blah blah blah, but what a finished product at the end. And I think that maybe some people really love that and they're probably more artists than me, but for me, enjoying what I do every day is very important because the last thing, one of my greatest fears other than spiders is falling out of love with what I do. That is, I can't think of anything more scary than that, of building this business and spending all this time and all this energy building this thing because I loved it and I wanted to do it, and then waking up one day and realizing I don't love it anymore. And so I work really hard to make sure that I enjoy it. And it doesn't mean I don't have unrealistic expectations about that. I don't expect to wake up every day and go, oh boy, because it's actually not true. I mean, I know some people can't imagine that, but when you have the pressure of deadlines and you pour your heart and soul in something and you get a page of revisions, I mean, those things can be very crushing, but you then have to be stoic about it and move on. But on the whole, like I said, I still deeply love what I do. And that's because I'm very honest with myself about what kind of experiences I have and have not enjoyed. And sometimes working on games or projects with really, really big names are some of the least enjoyable experiences I've had. And sometimes working on small things that nobody knows or sees are some of the most fun things I've ever worked on and most creative freeing. So I try to really be aware of that and keep a good temperature gauge on that at all times.
Yeah. And you have been at it for, I guess, a pretty long time. You know, like you've really built up a career having to figure out what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, what you want to say yes to. And, you know, you're at a point where like you can say no. And I feel like
Of course, right.
you've done that because you have gotten the experience over time. I guess my question is then, if you could break that down, like your X amount of years in this industry, like how could you share that process with somebody who is just starting out, you know, from point A, aspiring composer, to point B, I'm working in this industry, you know?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yeah, I have done it for a really long time. Like, for full backstory for people who don't know, I started taking piano lessons when I was 7. And I knew believed that I wanted to do media composing when I was 14. And I'm 30 now at the time of recording this video. So it was not a slow, it was not a quick journey for me. It took a really, really long time. And I had many, many, many weaknesses. I was not good at speaking on camera, or just, talking about my music confidently. I was very introverted, and I still am, even though people probably don't think that on camera, but yeah, I'm very introverted. I struggled very deeply with, I can't tell if that's I believe you or I don't believe you.
No, 100%. I am very much, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm talking to a camera and not talking over, coffee. But I was not good at orchestral music. I loved orchestral music. I was not good at it. And I feel like people think that I'm modest when I say that, but I promise you, I was not good at it. There were a lot of things that I had to work on. So over the course of 16 years, the short of that was I was very proactive all the time. I tried to remain really adaptable, and I did not try to do my career alone in a box. Those three things were the most important. They're the most important skills you can develop and nurture. And what that looks like over 16 years is actively looking up YouTube videos for composition and orchestration tricks. There's so much free content out there now. It's insane. I mean, I have like hundreds of videos on my channel, and there's hundreds of other composers with videos on their channel. The problem, especially in the music department side of things, is not that there aren't real resources out there. It's that people spend a lot of time watching stuff and not a lot of time doing. So you should always go in with a small little goal of what you want to learn musically. And once you learn that thing, once you get an idea, you immediately go and implement it and practice it and do it. So writing music consistently is just a baseline for having, being able to do this job. Then on top of that, the other part is networking. You got to go and you got to start talking to people. So often I hear from people, the reason they don't network is because they don't know anyone. Well, you don't know anyone because you're not networking. So you have to, it's a chicken and the egg. You have to start getting to know people. And that means meeting people for the first time and sending that awkward introductory email or whatever it is. I mean, it's going to be awkward in the beginning. That's just how it goes. But you build your network slowly but consistently. You don't look for immediate work. You look for building real relationships with people. Then you get comfortable with showing your work online or in some kind of space. I just think online is the best because there's composers who want to do it for a living that live all over the world. So online is a great way to do it. Get comfortable with showing your work, talking about what you do, sharing value with people in the online space so that people can congregate to you, not just for what you do, but who you are and what you represent for your brand of artistry. And then once you get to that point, you've got an audience, hopefully, and you've got a network, hopefully, and you can begin to dig a little deeper into those two things to create some actionable results for you to get paid work. That could be, just tapping into someone when there's an opportunity who's really overloaded with work and offering help. But all of it requires proactivity. I started off like everybody else did, where I was just like Google film composer jobs. I would go down that list and I would apply, and nothing would happen. And a huge part of that's just because you have no goodwill built up with those people. You're just a commodity like all the other hundreds of people who did exactly what you did. So that's not enough. You have to really start to build a career and a network and an audience that is totally unique to you. And that way you're not even competing with those people at all. You have your own circle of people who trust you and want to work with you. And that's what 16 years of doing that looks like.
Wow. It really has come down to a science in a way. Like, it's not that it's so structured, but that there are steps, that are readily available to anyone who wants to do this as a living. I just don't think that we know what exactly to do, or even if we do end up getting work. like it's almost hard for us to then know what do we do professionally? How do
Yeah.
we interact with these people in a way that makes it look like I also know what I'm doing? You don't want to put on a show, but at the same time, you want to not just be the composer that has never done anything, only writes music in their room and can't do the job.
Yeah,
So
and to scale the career. I mean, yeah, every new kind of challenge that you hit becomes this massive roadblock to overcome, because even if you build the network and you get a work opportunity and then they ask you, so what's your rate? And every composer goes, I don't know, whatever. People, there's all these new unexpected twists and turns in the career that you get hit with. I remember I had, during quarantine, I got invited to do an interview for a VR company that was working on a game. And I was interviewing or pitching to do composing. And I started the call and they were like, all right, yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. And so I did. And I gave them my backstory and we talked for like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. And they seemed really enthusiastic and they were like, all right, awesome. Okay, so we'll let you know. Thanks so much. Never heard from them again. And at the time, because I didn't have the know-how, I'm like, I don't really understand what I did wrong or why I didn't get the job. I later, over, again, lots of years, came to realize, like, oh my gosh, I never even asked them what they're looking for. I never vetted them to see how I could overlap and serve their needs. I simply assumed that, hey, I write music, you need music, that's good enough, let's work together. And I thought the more flexible I allowed myself to be, I'm flexible with my rates, whatever deadline work, I thought the more flexible I would be, the more interested they'd be in working together. Instead, what I think they perceive me as desperate and too open for opportunity and no clear boundaries and no clear positioning of a specialty. But I would never have known that had I not gotten farther in the industry and learned. So even though there are a lot of musical resources out there to get your chops up, I've noticed that there's very few business resources, career resources towards everything else that you have to do in the career, which is quite a lot. So you're setting me up perfectly for the Bootcamp pitch.
Beautiful.
If only there was a way.
If only, Zach, if only you put in X amount of hours of work,
yeah,
into something.
174 or something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is such a beautiful segue into something like truly you have actually put together. And the reason why I know this is because I have been editing so much of this work that you have done, pretty much mapping
so much
everything that you have just kind of discussed. Like your 16 years of experience, you have somehow like put it in a way that it makes sense over, step by step, but like it makes sense for people that have zero idea how to even get started. As someone who has watched your channel, as someone who has started from like the dream of, oh, I want to be a composer, let me just start writing music and see how that goes. This is something that I wish I had. I wish I kind of knew what I was doing. And
me too.
Resources are out there, but no one, like, it's not there in a structured way, or at least a way that is meant to make us feel like confident in the process.
Well, thanks. I mean, that's been the goal. And I mean, I've always been passionate about, my story is I am passionate about making music and getting paid to do it for a living. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I also get equally fired up when I see other people doing the same. Regardless if it's music or not, I get really fired up when I hear someone say that they managed to make a career, to spend the majority of their working life doing something that they actually enjoy is such an incredible feat and such an amazing use of our limited time on the planet that it yeah, it just makes my heart sing. And so I'm very passionate about this, but also, like you said, I did not have a roadmap when I started. And as a result, it took me 16 years to really try and figure it all out. And I did spend a lot of time. I don't consider anything a waste of time, but I spent a lot of time staying in my comfort zone in a lot of aspects. And I could have gotten where I am now much faster, actually, had I been more aware of my blind spots and had more structure on how to actually implement those things. I asked myself before I even made this course, because I'm like, if I'm going to put this much time into it, I need to like understand why this doesn't exist. So I asked myself, why doesn't this exist? Why is there not a resource like this out there? And my best guess that I can think of right now is the people that understand this stuff and the people that are finding success doing this stuff have so much work and so many opportunities that they're too busy to actually decide to teach it and make a course. That's what I think is happening. Because you hear bits and pieces from people who are successful, little, it's about who you know and go network. And I got this opportunity from this person. You hear the advice, but breaking it down takes time. We have to actually codify this into actionable steps. When that's been as much time as I've spent recording the course, I've spent an equal or more time actually preparing the material and figuring out how to organize it in a way that's logical for someone who's going from literally ground zero. So that's been the big impetus of the bootcamp, is like, I want to make the course that I wish that I'd had. And I've coached many, many, many students. I think I did a head count of it a couple of weeks ago. And I think it's like 200 students over Zoom lessons teaching composing over the past 3 years. And so often the same questions would come up and the same reservations. I don't know anybody. I sent out 200 emails and nothing happened. What's the best job website for finding work? Where are the opportunities? Where are the research? Over and over and over again. And I kept giving the same advice over and over and over again. And so eventually I was like, well, why don't I just make a course about this so that this information exists permanently for people in an organized and compact way? So that's the goal of the course, because I want to see more people doing what they love for a living. And no, it doesn't happen overnight, but it doesn't mean that there can't be actionable things that you can learn and implement to get there faster.
100%. Just from going through and editing and, seeing everything come together, like, it feels very, very definitive, because it's you're answering the questions that people want to know, like, it's not fluff. It's not the typical tips, like you said, that we hear all the time. Well, you just have to network. It's who you know. It's
what does that mean?
Like, what does that mean? Well, here it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what I really appreciate about the course. You also created this, like, the Notion toolkit, and it basically combines everything that the course is going through, but it also gives actionable steps and templates, and like, this is exactly how you send that email.
This is what you say.
Really, you can see the work that was put into it,
Thanks, man. Well, it's one thing to learn it, and everybody learns different. That's part of the challenge of even teaching a course like this. Is there's people that are very organized and don't really struggle with certain aspects that are going to be able to learn, hey, say this, and then say, no problem, I got it, and go say it. And then there's people that need a little bit more help and guidance, or forget, because the boot camp is condensed into 6 weeks, but the reality is that these careers, hey, if every student who takes the boot camp gets their career in 6 weeks, awesome, and I hope they write me an amazing testimonial, and I'm really happy about that. But I expect that it's going to take longer than 6 weeks. So the next challenge is like, okay, so you learn these things, but how do you walk away with something physical or digital that you can then use as a tool while you go through the rest of your career? So the Notion toolkit is essentially a combination of some of the most important lessons It's got the lead database. So as you network with people, you can actually keep track of them because believe it or not, the more you network, the harder it is to remember everybody. It's got scripts for how you reach out to people. It's got schedules for how you reach out to people. It's got project management because once you do start getting work, you're going to get busy and you're going to need to be able to keep track of things to be professional and keep getting jobs. It's got more stuff than I could even possibly list in a video. That's why I made it in the toolkit so I don't have to remember what I put into it. But it's a lot of stuff, a lot. Everything I could possibly think of for this career.
Yeah, that's incredible. And what's cool about it is that it is, you know, if something were to come up, if there was an update to it, it's so readily accessible for people.
Oh yeah, I can just add it right in. Yep.
Just add it right in and, check out the latest version of the toolkit and,
Yep.
And I think that's such a cool aspect because it's not that it's just a course, it's a course, but then it's also these databases and the toolkit, but then it's also like an actual community of other people, other composers that genuinely want to connect,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, I try to cover as much as I can, but I also anticipate that there's going to be things that I never thought of. And there's going to be these unique challenges and pain points for people. And so how does this boot camp provide a resource for those questions? And so, yeah, we have like the weekly Q&As where I'll be answering those questions one-off. But once those weekly Q&As are done, the boot camp commences and people graduate, you still need people to be able to have a support system. And I mean, there are plenty of courses where people just say, thanks, bye. But like I said, I'm really passionate about people doing this and helping. It feels good. And it's really just amazing to hear students having success stories. So the student portal was designed to kind of help with that. The student portal is the lifetime access thing. It's like a forum essentially that's exclusive to the students, and there's weekly challenges. I don't even think you know about this yet, but there's some weekly challenges and stuff that I've got set up. So there's like a 12-week networking challenge where every week,
oh wow,
it basically you tune into this thing, you click the I'm doing this, and then you check I did this, and you get some points on the community app, so you can get points and be on a leaderboard. Like it's gamified, and it's really cool. And I'm just constantly trying to think of new things to add to this. I haven't done a single project educationally as big as this ever. I probably never will because it's like I don't know if I can do anything bigger than this. So
yeah, no, this is like the flagship thing. This is I mean. Of course, if you ever do anything else, like I'm super excited for it, but like this feels like such and I said it before, like a definitive, like, okay, it's not just about the music. This is about how do I actually do the thing that I love as my livelihood? How am I going to be able to work as the composer?
And I mean, like I said, if we decide, hey, these students are really dying for some technical stuff, if they're really dying, they're like, I'm getting all this stuff, but I really just don't get how to handle these spotting notes or more of the technical stuff, I'll just add more modules into the course. And people that are in early will get all of it. Like the people that are willing to take a risk with me and jump in early are going to reap the most rewards because they're the ones that are going to get lifetime access to anything that I add to the course. And I do plan on adding a lot to the course. It's probably not going to be, it's barely a boot camp now. I resisted calling it academy because I don't necessarily like love the academic aspect that comes with that. I wanted it to feel a bit more lively and sporty or whatever, but it very well could become an academy over time if we continue to add modules and things. So it is a lot.
The way you set it up as a 6-week process, like you're doing things in a way that you're underneath it all makes it feel like an active boot camp, and I think that's really great because you do include those like the bonus modules. Like one of them, I think you're actually sharing also the scene studies.
Yep.
You know, you're going through different scenes. You're actually sharing the techniques that, you know, should someone have a question about it, like you're not forgetting about the music. You are still sharing some behind the scenes, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there is so much that can be added, and it becomes so easy to add it. To be honest, like as you know, because you're part of this journey, but for the audience, like it's the setup of these things and the creation and just bringing this thing into existence. That's the really hard part. Now that it's set up, it actually becomes infinitely easier for me to add things, which makes me much more inclined to add stuff to it. Because I would much rather have this be the thing forever that we can just pile resources in than have to exert another 170 hours towards a separate course. I don't like marketing very much. I'm with a bunch of my composer students in this course. I don't love marketing. It makes me feel icky. So, like, I would rather just market one thing and just be done with that. And so, yeah, there's scene studies in there, but there could very well be other things if we do master classes, if people are really dying to know more about gear, or, you know, I'm thinking something that would be really useful in the future would be talking about finances, bookkeeping, because at the end of the day, to make a living doing music, you have to make profit, not just make money. You actually have to make profit. So making sure you can do that properly is a thing in itself. So it's literally infinite what we could add to this thing, but it's already massive even as it is. So
yeah, I'm incredibly excited for this launch. And right
thanks, man.
now, it's like at the time of recording this, you're doing a pre-sale, right?
Yep. Yeah. So it's at the time of recording this, we got like less than 2 days left, but from November 16th at literally, you know, clock strikes 12, November 16th to November 30th, the very last minute of November 30th, it's 50% off. So it's $500 off for people that enroll early. They get the same benefits at people that join at the full pricing. They get the same stuff forever. And I am not sure if I will do that 50% off ever again, because the course is only going to get bigger. And I think the value of the course is going to improve and increase. The only thing we don't have right now are student testimonials, which hopefully we get those once people enroll and see the benefit of learning this stuff. And if you miss the pre-sale, we may still do it. I don't know if this course is going to be an online always evergreen or if we're doing it on a recurring basis. But if you're watching this after the fact, just join the waitlist, because that will tell you when the next enrollment is coming, if it's not already up now.
Yeah, it makes sense that, you know, 50% off is already huge. Just knowing the size of it, and like you said, that there's going to be more and more added to it. That is really incredible. And when does the full course start? When is
Right.
the actual launch?
So also, I forgot to mention too, there are payment plans, because I get that composers may not have $500 to shell out all at once. So like there's payment plans. Kajabi has that built right into it, so you can look and see. The full course launch starts on January 1st. So it'll be a month after the pre-sale ends, the course will launch. And you can still enroll after the pre-sale is done. There's that 1 month window in December. It's just going to be at full price. So if you really want to reap the benefits of getting in early and saving $500, like do it in November. That's the time to do it.
Yeah, don't wait on it, because like you said, you don't know if you're going to go this low again. You don't know when the next, you know, if there's going to be another sale. It just makes sense that, you know, if you're passionate about this and you're serious about making a living, you know, go do it in November.
I promise you'll get your money's worth in terms of stuff. I mean, most VSTs are like, good quality VSTs are like $400 or $500. I promise that you're going to get more out of this boot camp than you will out of the value of one high-end VST. I promise. I wish that I had invested more money.
Again.
Yeah, right. I wish I had invested more money in education for the business side earlier. It's only something that I started to do more recently. Like I paid $500 for a 1 hour session with a coach, and got value out of that 1 hour session that was worth the $500. So it's definitely worth investing in the health of your career early. You'll see the benefits early.
Yeah, absolutely. Educate. That's why I love educating so much, because to me, education in general is such an important part of why I do what I do. I love to learn. I want to better myself. I want to open my mind to other options out there that I might not have known if I wasn't actively trying to learn. And, you know, and instead of trying to learn something and take it all in and not do anything, like that's another thing that where you learn the thing, you implement the thing. You learn the thing, you implement the thing. And doing that for throughout your career is going to get you so much farther than, just simply just absorb and then do nothing. And then think that,
Yep.
oh, well, that didn't work, so I have to try something else. Um
Absolutely.
yes,
And I mean,
in,
regardless of whether people choose to take the course or not, I mean, I won't be hurt if people decide not to take the course or they can't afford it. That's totally fine. But if you do want to do it for a career, that is imperative. It's just a matter of constantly being proactive. There's this thing that I love called the locus of control, which is this idea of where does motivation come from and proactivity. And the people that are the most motivated are the people that believe that the things that they can do every day yield change and yield results and bring them closer to their goals. If you think that your inability to get a composing career, build, a job that you love is because of things that are out of your control, that's a very sad feeling and a very unmotivating feeling. And how can you possibly find motivation in that? There might be aspects of that that are true. Everybody has really difficult situations that can hinder their ability to do this, but you have to believe that you can actually do something to make that change that you're looking for. And from that belief will actually come the change. And then you'll see the results and you'll build the motivation, and that's what will keep you propelled forwards. So above anything, whether you take the course or not, or another resource, whatever you do, just believe that you actually have the ability to do this for a living if you put in the work and the effort in the right directions.
Yeah. Wow. 100%. That is, like you said, whether you take the course or not, that is like career advice. That is, we always are like, well, how do you stay motivated? How do you, I can never, I always do this work and nothing ever comes from it. It really stems from this true belief that yes, you are working towards your goal, and you can always adjust that goal, fine tune it as you need. But like that's how you keep moving forward. And when you look back, then you see the actual growth that you have that you've gone through.
Yes.
You don't
And
see it in the moment, day to day, but when you look back, that's how you know. And that's someone who has done this for 16 years. I'm sure 14-year-old you would not have imagined where you are now,
no, definitely not. Dreamed of it, dreamt of it, but probably not imagined it. I would just happen to be naive enough at that age to think that I could do it. And then now looking back at it, I'm like, wow, I was maybe a little too confident in the success of this, because this was hard. But yeah, I mean, that you need a little bit of craziness in the sense that you gotta just be unshaken in your belief. And if you do feel shaken, which is totally normal, I mean, having doubt and stuff is totally normal, it's okay to take a break too. Like, you can come back to it. Your career, the beautiful thing is your career is not going anywhere. I used to think that I had to kind of stay on this hamster wheel to constantly keep my career up. And the reality is, like, if you took a week, a month, a year off from you pursuing your career goals or whatever goals they are, they're not going anywhere. You can come right back to them. You can pick up where you left off, and you'll have more clarity for taking some space away. So yeah, building some space and some forgiveness and patience is really important, because if I could have given myself one piece of advice backwards, it would have been like, everything you're doing is good enough. Just relax a little bit. Like, you're going to get there. Just relax. You just don't think this is so life or death all the time.
Yeah, that, I think that definitely can resonate with a lot of people, especially just starting out.
Yeah.
Because, I feel like I've definitely gotten better, but, always so anxious about when the next opportunity is going to be. But, accepting that the process is the thing. This is what I want to do. There's a level of acceptance and even more passion for what I'm doing, because I know that 80, I'm already almost 30, 80 years, no, like 50 years from now, I want to look back and be like, yeah, I did the thing that I wanted to do. So
yeah, I agree. Hey, you could hit 110, man.
oh, wow.
You're doing what you love. You never know.
Yeah, who knows? You know what? I'm
Happiness in modern science, anything's possible.
Well, what I love about all of the content that you come up with, Zach, is, all of this, the knowledge, all the passion, it shines through, in a YouTube video, on your Instagram posts, on your newsletters, so it really showcases all like the knowledge that you do have and that you're excited to share. So, as a fellow composer, like, thank you for all of that, because I'm also learning, and I'm also trying to grow, and so you've definitely been a huge help, and I'm sure there's a lot of other composers out there who know your channel and stuff that agree. So definitely thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Put a lot of work in that stuff. I'm very passionate about educating, because it's in my blood. So yeah, it's sad. I love writing music, but I equally love hearing student success stories and people who check out my content and learn something new. It's like very satisfying. So I appreciate that.
Of course. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Again, if you are interested in Zach's course, this is like he said, from November 16th to November 30th. You have that time frame of picking up the course, 50% off, and you get full access to everything. Like I said, I've been going through and editing, and I've seen the course grow. So definitely don't wait out on it, because there's a lot of really, really good content that I don't even think is, you could easily find just in a Google or YouTube search. It's all structured. So make sure you take advantage when you.
And I'm not paying him to say this.
He's not literally. I just want to point out that this chat, I was like, oh, Zach, I have a good idea, because
this is Robert's idea.
Video, but also we could talk about, your course coming up. So
Robert's a better marketer than me. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I should.
Yeah, no, I just really, really enjoy, Zach's content and all this. So that's why we're having a chat, and hopefully you also get some value. Course or no course. Like, hopefully the video itself, there is some really good tips, that we talked about that can even get you started in the meantime. But yeah, you did not pay me for this at all, I swear.
I can if you want me to.
No, please, no. This was awesome.
I hope to see all of you in the boot camp, or whoever's interested in doing it. I hope I get to see you there and get to learn more about you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Zach, for coming on. And again, everyone take advantage.